Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Lee Judges TV. This is the pilot episode, as they would say in the grand old US of A. In England, it's the premiere episode of Ladies Late Night. And thank you to Lee and Dan for inviting us on to do this. I am your host, Sophie Nicolau, and joining me this evening from She Knows Arsenal is Jessica Black. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I have a lot to say.
I know you do, and I know you do, and we're going to get there. And also joining is Lucy Hogg. Lucy has been appearing on the Highbury squad and is an up-and-coming female voice in the Arsenal community. Hi, Luce. How you doing?
Hi, guys. Lovely to be on. Thank you for having me again. Love it.
Awesome. Listen, we're going to kick off. You know what, Jess? You did a post-game show, and I want to play a clip of your immediate reaction to the Manchester City debacle. So why don't we start there? Because just to let everybody know, hello everyone in chat, and thank you for joining us this evening. Means a lot for us women in football talking about the Arsenal. But let's start off with Jess's clip, because this is going to be a very organic football conversation. So we'll kick off from there.
It's very hard to come away from the game with any sort of positivity or any sort of something to hold on to for the future. It's very much feeling like these are the symptoms of a bigger disease in Arsenal, which is a lack of leadership for me. That's all I really see. You know, Tim Stillman tweeted earlier and said, right young players, but we don't have the right leaders. And I just felt like that just says it all for me.
Okay, you guys, we've gone from being invincible to invisible. We have gone from having leaders like Tony Adams, Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Robert Pires, and even Robin van Persie. I'm sorry, I said the RVP word, yes, was a leader in this team. So, Jess, I want to touch on your comment and explain a little bit more, because we have Aubameyang, we have Lacazette, we have senior players like Xhaka, but it always seems like lately, over the last few years, the Arsenal don't have leadership not only on the pitch, but off the pitch.
Yeah, it just keeps coming back to me that I just feel like we're not going to get the benefit of having these really amazing young players because we don't have the right environment for them to be successful. I mean, this entire day, all I've been hearing is that we weren't supposed to beat Man City. We're not supposed to beat Man City. I know that we're not supposed to on paper, but the reality is you can't tell me that I didn't, like, you can't tell me what I saw in my own eyes. Like, there was no performance there. That's setting a very dangerous precedent for our young kids. Either they will become the Holdings and the Chambers, where they're just kind of like at that mediocre level, knowing that they can just kind of get away with murder and then still play the next day, or they'll leave and go to the Man Cities. Do you not think that Tierney could play for Man City? Do you not think that Saka could play for Man City? Like, this is a huge issue, and it's been like this for a very long time. I think when you have players like Chambers and Cedric and Holding that are clearly not carrying out the manager's plans, or they just don't understand them, we have a fundamental issue with leadership. And Arteta, to me, I think he's lost something here. A lot of people will say it's just because we're not supposed to beat Man City, but you can't tell me that what you saw was not a lack of performance and that there's something else underneath the surface there. There's rumors of crisis talks. If we're not supposed to be beating them and it's just because we don't have our best players, why do we have crisis talks already 3 games into the season? So for me, it's just, I'm looking at this bright young group of players thinking it's just going to be the same thing over again, where we're not going to reach the heights with this group because we don't have the structure. And it starts from the very tippy top with Josh, then to Edu, Vinay, Arteta, Aubameyang, everybody. And I love Aubameyang. I love some of our older players, but it's just not right. And you can't tell me I didn't see that on the pitch, regardless if it's Man City or Wickham Wanderers. We don't have it.
You know, what's really interesting is, now Vinny Vieira, who actually I was trying to keep quiet, wants to have his voice heard too. But leadership has been such an issue for so long, and it starts from the very top. Whether you work in football, whether you work in any industry, the essence of a company, a brand, a message, a mission statement is always indicative of who is at the very top. But Luce, what I want to focus on more here is not the owners, because the owners have actually given Edu and Arteta over 150 million to spend so far. I think Edu has spent close to 300 million since he's taken over. I believe Arteta has spent over 220 million since he's taken over. So this notion, the Cronkies, let's get it straight. They're terrible owners. They have been for years. It all starts with them. But they don't pick Xhaka, they don't pick Chambers, they don't pick Holding, they don't pick Kolasinac, they don't pick El Neni. They don't choose who we buy. Their problem is that they've hired the wrong people, probably for the last 10 years, to conduct our business. So why don't we start there? Because Arteta's the one that picks the team. They have given and backed a little bit in this summer especially, but talk me through that process.
Well,
I say that word loosely, by the way.
Trust that process, right? This infamous plan that we hear so much about without hearing anything about. This is the thing. No, they don't pick and choose who goes onto the pitch. They don't pick and choose what happens on the pitch or how players behave on the pitch. Of course, they do. Everyone wants Arteta out. These are the people that appointed Arteta. We never wanted him in the first place. We said inexperienced. We said it's too big a job for him. He's out of his depth, which clearly we've proved he is in fact out of his depth. There's a lack of leadership both on and off the pitch. The players walking into that stadium, into the Etihad the other day, they uploaded a video on Twitter. Our amazing social networking team uploaded a great video of them looking like they were going to the slaughter. Like lambs to the slaughter. And we knew, like, yeah, okay, we're not going to win. They're champions of the league. We're in a really bad way at the minute. But to go out there and play with no passion, no integrity, to just look dejected, and then to have our captain, Aubameyang, come out and just look ashamed and just empty promises yet again. Oh, we need to show that we're leadership figures for these younger players. Okay, well, we've heard you say that before. So where's that action? Where's showing that you're a leader to these younger players because they want to be there, those youngsters. Emi and Saka and Marta, they've proved that they have the passion for the club. They just need the experience around them to show them like the way and to progress forward.
And to touch on Jess's comment, it is shambolic when you think about how the club is relying on the Sakas and the Emile Smith-Rowes and the Martinellis of the world to turn our world from, upside down to upside. So, Jess, I want to take a step back a little bit as we continue the conversation about Arteta, because a lot of fans were screaming for a change in this particular match. But I don't think a lot of fans were screaming for experimental tactics, right? Everyone thought that he set the team up to fail against Chelsea in terms of how he defined the tactics at the back. And I think when we saw the team sheet going into the game against Manchester City, you have Kolasinac, who hasn't played a competitive Premier League game in 11 months. He benched Pablo Mari, who was a disaster against Chelsea. He's chosen Cedric, who was ostracised last season, but for some reason this season, he feels like he's the answer at right back. I would prefer Maitland-Niles actually to Bellerin or Chambers or Cedric at this juncture. Can you talk us through a little bit about the tactical changes that he made in terms of how he set us up at the back based on the opposition, but also it's not so much great you changed the tactics, but who did you choose to deploy those tactics? In that, were we really better off with Kolasinac instead of Tavares playing? Can you talk us through that a little bit?
I have no idea what Arteta saw against West Brom's academy kids that would make him choose said Kolasinac in this game. I think Pablo Mari is not up to the level to play for Arsenal Football Club, but neither is said Kolasinac, but he's actually not even fit to really play. He hasn't really played a lot of minutes. So what Arteta saw against West Brom, I'll never know. It might have something to do with his Fenerbahce deal falling through. Either way, he doesn't need to be playing. I just thought, if you go back to the Chelsea match, 3-4-3 was on. It was so obvious to play and match up with Tuchel. That's what you did the last time that you beat him, and you didn't do it. You set us up to fail. 4-2-3-1.
Exactly.
We don't have the midfield for it. We don't have the legs. Once you choose Xhaka, if you don't have Thomas Partey next to him, you better bunker in, because the guy cannot run from box to box. There's just no way. So then you come into this match and I'm thinking, all right, let's do 3 at the back. Let's be safe. Let's keep the score down. Let's try to have a performance. Chambers and Holding are 2 types of players that can play in low blocks and defend. Don't ask them to play out of the back. Keep it simple. Play on the counter. What does he do? He goes into this weird 4-5-1. It was very strange. It was almost galaxy brain overthinking it. We haven't played that system before. I could have sworn we went into preseason with the idea that he was going to come out of there having practiced different types of formations that we could use in different challenges. And we use a 3-4-3 and a 4-2-3-1. And I didn't see either one of those. So we go into this match 4-5-1 with Odegaard and Emile Smith-Rowe in front of Granit Xhaka in a midfield 3 against the best midfield in the league. So you're asking to get killed. Like, my whole thing is, it's not really about the defense, because the defense was going to be terrible no matter what. I do think that they took liberties and half defended half the time, but they were bad anyway. That midfield was negligent. Why not Lokonga? What's wrong with him?
Why did he bench Lokonga, guys? Why? Yeah.
I don't know. Even play El Neni so that at least you can just bunker down and sit in front of a back 3 and just hope that you keep the score down. Give these guys some confidence. So I don't know what he was thinking, but he puts out a team like a man that's very, very comfortable in his job, and he's tinkering with our season. He gets sacked in a year or so. He's in France or in Spain. He gets a new job, but where are we? Where does he get off tinkering this way and throwing away points? Where do we get off saying that it's okay not to have any goals in 3 games? I think our XG is like 0.05 or something like that. Like,
yes.
We haven't been close to scoring. -9. And people will look at Wolves and say, and this is just my last point on this, is that even if you say that we're playing hard fixtures, Wolves played against Spurs, Leicester, and Man United, and were better than Man United and Spurs in both games, lost 1-0. When you watch them play, you can't tell me that it's okay for us to perform the way that we did with a weakened squad. You know, this is just a joke to me.
I agree. And Luce, I think, were we expecting to beat Manchester City? No. Were we expecting to beat Chelsea? No. But it's the manner in which we have lost to these teams that is an absolute debacle at this point. And then he benches Lokonga, who's clearly actually been one of our best players in preseason and at the start of the season. What's your take on that?
Before I touch on an amazing super chat that's just come in, I just do want to say, despite the fact that we were playing West Brom, a championship side, yes, we've taken that into consideration. When you win 6-0, you've got a certain confidence about you. So for you to drop the majority of the team that have played and won, it's a negative impact. It's a negative mindset. Why on earth is Lokonga not playing? Why on earth? The Kolasinac situation must be a shop window situation to me, just because you were trying to sell this guy for the majority of the summer, and then instead of playing your own side in Mari, you've then gone and put him in against the champions of the Premier League. I just don't really understand where his logic is lying right now. I think he's still experimenting. He still doesn't know what his strongest side was. But Gio made a brilliant point. He said, as long as Xhaka is in midfield every week, we will not progress as a club. Why are Wenger-era signings still here and starting? Exactly. Why Arteta's been given more than enough opportunity to get in signings, and he has, but none of our new signings played against City yesterday, bar Odegaard. But we've seen what Odegaard can do, and he can't just impact everything by himself. He's very creative. He creates chances, yes, but it's not a one-man team. He can only do so much. And Xhaka is just a full-on liability.
Yeah, I felt bad for Odegaard yesterday.
The thing is with Xhaka, we knew this isn't a one-time thing. This has happened before. So why on earth we've given him a contract extension based on the lack of discipline? He's a liability. He has mistakes in him every week, especially in big games. I just don't understand what benefit he is to our side.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick, because Gio brings up a really good point with his comment, guys. Xhaka, I believe, has been sent off 11 times in his career, 4 times for the Arsenal, more than any other player in the Premier League since he's joined the club. He was flirting all summer on Instagram with Jose Mourinho. He kept talking about how life in Rome would be beautiful. And the deal fell through. And I reward the club because they didn't cave this time and just sell a player for nothing. But when you see what happened again yesterday, you almost think, you know what? We should have just given him away for 12 million. At least it's 12 million. It's 12 million more than we would have. You know,
I'd pay them to take him.
We let Ozil go for nothing. Sokratis, Mustafi, all of those guys. I mean, if you look at the list of players that we've allowed to go for nothing, it's shocking. Jess, Xhaka, okay. He then doubles down, Arteta, a week ago, stands in front of the press when everyone was asking him about the deal. And he says, he's a leader. I never wanted him to leave. He is, and defines what an Arsenal player is. I'm not saying verbatim what he said, but it's around these lines. He actually put him up as a role model. I've supported Xhaka. I've stood by Xhaka at times when I felt like he was treated unfairly. Bullying online is never acceptable. But to put him up as the image of your Arsenal, your new team, to me, totally don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth anymore. He's desperate. This all smacks of desperation. What is your take on that?
I don't even listen to his press conferences anymore, so I didn't even know he said that. I stopped listening because I just know it's all crazy. But with the Xhaka thing, I just feel like I want to be fair. That I feel like some of the criticism that has come, like I think sometimes we take it too far, and obviously it's gone to abuse, and I don't agree with any of that. But there was an opportunity this summer to change the narrative around our midfield and our competitiveness in midfield. We had 50 million. Plus 25 that we spent on a goalkeeper and a center back. Both players I love. But the midfield was the main issue. Regardless if you're going to keep Xhaka or not, you could have still changed that narrative. You could have had a Basuma. A Basuma and Xhaka midfield against Man City is a lot better than what we're putting out now. We basically hitched like our wagon and all of our hopes and dreams onto this one guy. And I just have this question around why he never has competition for his spot. Why is he always the number one choice? Why is he always given the armband? I mean, why is he such a central figure to this team? Not only from a playing perspective, but from a leadership perspective, he's mediocre, poor. You know, so he just exemplifies everything that's wrong with this club. If you wanted to keep him, that's fine, because honestly, I don't like setting a precedent in the market that we're willing to sell our starters like for nothing. You know, I get that. But there is still a chance for you to bring in another midfielder that would give him competition. Maybe he's so lackadaisical and does what he wants because he knows when he gets back from his suspension, his spot's still going to be there.
Jess, it's the Ozil syndrome. Ozil never felt any heat from any player
He's
ever.
Not under pressure.
No.
You can't name a single player that has come into this club that's actually been somebody that could compete with him for a spot. You bring in Lakanga, he's competition for Thomas Partey. Why does Thomas need competition? Like, come on, he's world class. Xhaka is not. Why couldn't you bring in a Bruno Guimaraes, even if it's not Basuma, because AFCON? Bruno Guimaraes, 30 million right there. You have somebody that can step right in, but probably in a game or so, Xhaka loses his spot. So I think we go out of our way to limit competitiveness in our team, to make it a soft environment. And we've been a soft touch for a long time. I think it all goes in hand with each other.
Yes,
Arsenal is a soft touch.
That's the DNA and culture we've built. We're a soft touch and we're the dartboard. Lucy, one of the things I think Arsenal fans have a really tough time dealing with is a player like Xhaka throws his shirt on the pitch, tells fans to F off, and is patted on the back when he gets sent off by Mikel Arteta against City this weekend. Pepe gets sent off and he's scolded publicly by Arteta, right? Saliba gets ostracized and is out of the team, not even given a chance. Guendouzi was a punk against Brighton. There's no doubt about that, right? But his lack of man management, there are a lot of players who are cocky. There are a lot of players who have troubles. Look at Mason Greenwood. Look what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done to help Mason Greenwood over the summer. Solskjaer saying he's become a man over the summer. How he started off his season. When Arteta faces adversity, man managing men, young men, players, he sends them away. His ego is so out of whack, he doesn't know how to deal with them. Are you telling me that Saliba isn't a better option right now at the back than what we have? What is your take on how he handles all of that? And especially kind of playing favourites, because this is part of the problem.
The fact that we've sent Saliba away, I will never understand. Why is he in France when he hasn't even been given a fair opportunity? And then you've got players like Xhaka who have basically spat on our shirt as far as I'm concerned. He should have gone in 2019 when that happened, because no matter what the situation, in competitive sport, you are going to receive criticism. If you can't handle criticism and you're swearing and cussing out the very supporters who are essentially paying your wages, who are essentially they're the reason you're there, then you need to go. And then the situation where Roma would be a dream. You've not only mugged yourself off because they don't want you, you've mugged us off because we've kept you and we've given you a raise to go with it. So our fans are just as bad, in my opinion, because you say anything negative about any player and it's bullying. But I never agree with any abuse, any family targeted situation. I agree, that's awful. In any situation, I don't condone it. However, you're going to be criticised. You're a professional athlete. You don't perform well, then why am I going to sit there and condone toxic positivity and say, oh yeah, but next time you'll be better? No, we deserve better. We've seen him play for 3 seasons now. He's not getting any better. He's not going to suddenly get better under any manager. This guy's seen out 3 managers now. Why is he still here? Why?
It's a great point, and it's quite incredible that he's seen out 3 managers. Here's the thing that bothered me the most. And, a lot of the times people say, oh, of course players have to perform. But players react to situations on the pitch, Jess. And when you see how Chelsea dealt with playing with 10 men against Liverpool versus us, yes, they're much more talented. They've got better players. We all know that. But also the coaching part of that moment, it took him so long to react to us going down to 10 men. He played out the rest of the half and eventually took Saka off, which, by the way, I was happy for Saka. I do not want that young fella to have to endure this debacle, him or Emile Smith-Rowe. So he took a long time to react. And that's the problem I have. It's like we folded like cheap lawn chairs as soon as we went down to 10 men.
Well, it's because it's always an excuse to not take responsibility. We'll do anything and everything not to accept responsibility. That's why you come out and look like you can't win the game. It's taking away responsibility. We don't stand up. It's not even just about, Sophie, it's not even just about what we do at 10 men. It's what we do with 11 men. We don't even stand up and be counted then. Then we go down to 10 men and it's like, great. Now we really don't have to care anymore. And sometimes what I notice is that our team will go down a goal and then we'll start playing. Because then you're playing catch up. It's a mentality aspect. And no, he didn't even react to Reece James tearing down our right-hand side against Chelsea. He didn't react at all. I wasn't shocked that he didn't react at the going down to 10 men, because I just figured at the end of the game he would say it was a bad call by the ref, fine margins, and we were real close and we had this maybe chance from Emile Smith-Rowe. That's what he does. And when your manager doesn't assume responsibility and lets you off the hook, then you just keep going. And it's like this vicious cycle of people kind of like, even what I've noticed with the team is this weird thing where they don't actually defend. Pablo Mari's done it. Chambers has done it, where instead of actually defending, they fall on the ground and ask for fouls because it's taking away responsibility. It's the ref's fault. We got a bad call. The sun wasn't shining. We're playing against a team we're not supposed to beat, and there's COVID. Like, it's really just like weak mentality, and it doesn't really matter if we have 15 men or 10 men. It's always going to be the same. It's always an excuse not to take responsibility. And I wasn't shocked that when we went down to 10 men, there was no reaction. It was just very much like, because as Lucy said, when the game started, they had already came out there like it's okay to lose because we're not supposed to beat Man City. We don't have our best players. COVID. Everybody's dealing with that. Get over it. Like, we weren't supposed to lose against Brentford, but you guys still did that. It's just silly. It's a mentality.
Yeah, definitely a mentality. And Luce, I think you've got one to read out for everyone here.
Absolutely. TAVFC has got two really interesting questions, actually. So does Arteta get protection Wenger or Emery didn't get in regards to criticism? And why do you think Tierney's performance have dipped recently? So just quickly regarding the protection for Arteta situation, I feel like he's getting protection from the board that Wenger and Emery didn't get just purely because they don't have another plan. What do you guys think?
I agree. I don't know. Listen, on the pitch, we definitely don't have a plan A, and we don't have. How can we have a plan B if we don't even have a plan A, right? With regards, I think Wenger, I mean, he got ripped to shreds at the end, didn't he? I mean, they were flying planes over the Emirates. I don't think, and I think that was, and he has to take accountability for the demise, the beginning of the demise. And it happened under his watch and Ivan Gazida's watch. These are facts. This is not fiction. And, you know, I don't want to hear Wenger talk about, what really annoys me is when I hear Wenger talk about all the players he could have signed. Stop talking about the players you could have signed, because if you sign them, then maybe the Arsenal Football Club would be in a different position right now. And people say Arteta inherited a mess. Unai Emery was the first one who inherited a mess. It's very difficult to take over from a legendary manager, right? Look what happened to David Moyes at Manchester United. Anyone taking over that first role after a legendary manager leaves, they're onto a hiding. You know, and look how long it's taken United to find stability. And they've had a better squad and players than us, you guys. Unai Emery would never have made it during this period. Are you kidding me? He was vilified for a lot less. And the only difference between Unai and Arteta, and I'll pass it over to Jess, is that Unai lost his final and Arteta won his. But Arteta's FA Cup love coupons have officially expired for me and many Arsenal fans.
That's so funny. Just love coupons. Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day and I was like, yeah, if he hadn't won the FA Cup, he probably would have been gone. Like, I would hope he would have been. It gave him a lot of, I think, false, it gave a false image of what his level actually is. And I think we've lost sight of, we do this a lot as a fan base. We take these little things and we start making them bigger than what they are. And FA Cup is great, but finishing top 4 in the league is more important. We know that. And we haven't done that in a very long time. Nobody cares that we won the FA Cup. We're finishing outside of Europe now. So the only litmus test for Arteta now is to get us into Europe. And he's failing that day after day after day. But we're still looking at him as this faux generational manager because he won the FA Cup. Well, newsflash, anybody with a little bit of luck, no offense, can win the FA Cup. But you can't luck your way into Europe in the Premier League because it's too difficult. The consistency levels are too high. So with the Unai Emery thing, I don't want to revise history or too much. And because what I'm seeing is that people are like, well, Unai was such a better manager and all this. And I do think he was, but I still don't think he was a good fit. What I like to focus on now is Arteta and the team that he has right now. And it's his team. I'm still seeing people say, this is not his team. He's dealing with a mess. There's all of this. I have a hard time believing even a manager like Graham Potter couldn't come in and look at a group of players, Thomas Partey, Aubameyang, Lacazette, all of the good young players that we have, Ben White, Odegaard, all of this whole group, and get them to perform. I think that there's some Arteta tax here, that his inexperience is keeping us from being able to see the true value of this team. And we're starting to fool ourselves into thinking that they're really, really bad. And they're probably sick of hearing people say that they're not good. This is Aubameyang, you guys. He's not a bad player. Lacazette, not a bad player. They're worse because of the managers and the decisions that we make. It affects them. And I think Arteta's affecting them. And one thing on Tierney is if I hear one more Arsenal fan try to say that it's Tierney, I will throw up. Tierney is one of our best players. He could play on he's one of our only players that a top 4 team would take. He's way
Absolutely.
better than most of our team. The idea that he's not any good, did you guys not watch him play for Scotland in the Euros? He's not fallen off. He's tired of carrying this team on his back. We've seen this before. When a player is asked to be the beacon of our creativity, which he is at this point without Odegaard, we're hitting hope, FC. You get tired after a while. He is tired of being the one. Are you not tired of looking at Sed Kolasinac to your right, Pablo Marie to your right? You're joking. I saw people say Ben White is terrible. I'm sorry, but you have who did you have? I mean, Chambers to his right, Pablo Marie to his left. Like, it's a madness.
Yeah.
Our players are not this bad.
In a team that lacks consistency, Tierney is one of our only consistent players. And like you said, in the FA Cup, it's a game of chance. Like, you could have a good game and you can get lucky, but in the Premier League, you need consistency, and that is what we are lacking as a side. Oladapo in the super chat just asked, do you think our over-reliance on a possession-based game is hampering us, especially when we don't have those players, hence keeping Xhaka new identity ?
Absolutely.
Jess, you and I have talked about this before as well. Square pegs, round holes for me. Arteta wants to do something, but you can't do that with the resources that you have. And really good managers, in my opinion, adapt to the players they have. But he wants to just squeeze. And look, he should be able to implement his philosophy. But in the manner in which he does it, he just sets players up to fail. Hence Tierney looking like he was a League One player against Chelsea, when, like you said, he's our best player.
Yeah, it's we have a team full of counter-attacking players. Like, we really, really do, especially at the top end of the pitch, which is where it matters. Our attacking players have to be in scoring goals is the most important thing. So you want to put your attacking players in positions where they can actually score goals. Aubameyang is a great counter-attacking player, as well as Pepe. Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, great ball progressors. And even if you have an Odegaard, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play this slow possession build-up game. We're so much better when we can actually be a part of the competition in the midfield, break up the play, and just go on the counterattack. That's when we're actually at our best. When we slowly build up and try to do this possession-based game, we're dead. I just feel like if he was a little bit more flexible, he'd get more out of what we have, and he's just not doing it. And without one player, we're unable to play this way, and that's an issue.
That's alarming.
One player out, we can't play this way anymore. And that's scary because we're not going to have... COVID is still here, and it's a congested schedule. So we're going to continue to have players out. So if that's going to always be your excuse, is that I don't have my players. And we talked about this, Sophie. I need my perfect profiles and then backups that are perfect in order to make this work. I'm sorry. You sound like Man City. Are we Man City? No, we're not. We would be a really good team if we would just be flexible and let them play counterattacking. Especially with players like Pepe and Aubameyang,
Yeah,
That's
and Luce, real quick, Norman Johnson in the chat just said Arteta complicates things, Go on, Luce.
He really does. The thing is, you've got to play to the best of your ability, and you've really got to simplify it, bring it back down to basic football. City aren't good at aerial play, so they don't play aerial football. Why can't we bring it back to the basics? Arteta's trying to do something with players, like you said, Jess. He's trying to do things that players are not capable of doing. They're not those types of players. Play to the style that your players are suited at. Work with what you've got, and then you might see some sort of performance. Because the players right now, they just look confused. Like, when you see subs coming on, they're looking at each other like, oh, so I'm meant to be here? Like, is this... You see them looking at the bench, and it's concerning, because what are you doing in training that you don't know that where your players are meant to be? That
Did you guys
in the FA Cup? I mean, that's exactly what he did in the FA Cup. That's how he won the FA Cup. Like, it's insane
it's just all experimenting. It's all like, why don't you know your strongest side yet? It's been 2-3 years now. You still don't know your strongest side, your strongest tactics, your play style. It's just unacceptable at this
also
level.
playing relying on Tierney and continually pushing it on the flanks and crossing it in. We must have put in 780 crosses last season. And how many goals did we convert from that? It
like
is
zero.
shambles.
Zero.
We had 18% possession against Manchester City, 0 corners and 0 clear-cut chances created. We have been down 17 times at half-time under Mikel Arteta. We have won 0 games coming back from any of those. We've only drawn 2. We've lost 15. He has a worse home record after 20 months than Wenger did in 6 years. I'm not comparing them. I'm just spitting the analytics and the facts. Okay. He has been worse in the Premier League than Unai Emery. I just don't understand how and why this manager is so protected when players like Aubameyang have regressed. Tierney this season has regressed. I'm afraid for Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe. And when people talk about not having players available to him, Oba, Laka, Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Lokonga, Martinelli, Tierney, Leno, all available to play against City. Gabriel Partey Pepe, we saw them play in Arteta's team last season, guys, and we know the result of that. We still finished 8th. Ben White is the only unknown commodity. All these excuses just have to stop. I don't want any Arsenal fan to look at the Premier League table tonight. It's like a really bad horror movie.
Well, I just
The worrying thing for me,
go ahead.
sorry, babe, go.
No, go ahead.
I'll go just because this riles me up. The fact that I'm getting people say to me, "Oh, but we're only 3 games in." No, we're at least 5 years into a massive decline. Just because it's come slow and steady, but now you're starting to see like what the fair and few have been saying from like 5, maybe even 10 years ago. Some of us, I know my dad is as sick to death of saying the same things. We're in no way in the early stages of this. So for you to say, "Oh, we're only 3 games in," why is it acceptable to start the season this way in the first place? Why do you not want better for your football club? That's the whole point of a pre-season, is so that you can prepare. And we look so unprepared yet again for like the 3rd or 4th season in a row. Why is it bad to want better? Why am I negative for deserving better at the prices we pay?
I even
Good point, Jess.
With the whole Arteta getting protected thing, I just feel like we've talked ourselves into it and we overemphasize this because it's really painful for us to switch managers. We're not very good at it because our club is not good at it. So we don't want that big switch. It's not the end of the world to switch managers. It's just not. And if the whole project is built around the manager, we built it incorrectly. I don't actually have an issue with having young players and building around them and having a longer term rebuild. The issue with that is that we're Arsenal Football Club and we're expected to be at least in Europe. I get that the Cities and the Chelseas and the Man Uniteds, they're spending in a way that we can't really compete with. So Europe at this point is probably looking pretty good, but he still has to hit his benchmarks. Even if we give him time to build the squad, he's gotten time, he's gotten money, he needs to hit his benchmarks. There has to be a minimum requirement, and he's not hitting that. 3-game loss already. Do you really think he's gonna... There's no precedent that shows a novice manager coming back from the abyss twice to get into Europe. He didn't even get into Europe last season. The turnaround that we're talking about is he was mid-table. Let's call it what it is. It's not really a turnaround. The turnaround that people are talking about is him getting from 20th to 6th. 20th to 6th.
Jess, this is our worst start since 1954. This is not, like Lucy said, this isn't just happening now. And look at the teams. We've lost to a newly promoted team who haven't even been in the top flight for 70 years. Had we played really well and just lost that game, we'd all be like, you know what? We played well. You can see it. It's coming. We were like garbage. Exactly. Wolves, you can see the progression under this manager. They're playing better football than they did with Nuno. But because they've lost, people can't see that, right?
If they play us like they played today, then we're losing against them. That's another 3 points gone. They were
I-
looked really strong today.
Are there three? I asked this question on Twitter yesterday, guys. Are there three teams worse than us in the Premier League right now?
No, in my opinion,
Not from
no.
what I've seen, and I try to watch every single game because I need to understand if I'm seeing the things correctly. We cannot compete in this league the way that we play. We're just not competitive, and all it takes is for teams that are have less quality than us to decide that they want it, and we're out of the competition. Because in order for us to win, the other team kind of has to sit back, let us pass around. And now I think teams we have, like, that little credit that we had where teams would just not play us because we were Arsenal Football Club. We don't have that anymore. No respect whatsoever. So now that we don't have that, if we're not willing to compete, it's really fine margins here. I mean, last season we really weren't able to compete with teams that we really should be able to be beating. The Aston Villas, the West Hams, it was tough. Now it's going to be the Wolves, the Crystal Palace, the Newcastle. Like, I'm telling you guys, like, people are like, we'll easily beat Norwich. Did you see them play against Leicester? Leicester is a superior team to us at this point, you guys. Like, let's be real. Like, let's be real. I'm not trying to be negative. Let's be real. Like, it's going to be tough. And if we have to have the perfect settings, it's going to get real really quick. Like, I can see mid-table or worse. Like, I can.
I mean, look, I'm being honest, you guys. At the end of the day, we're all fans. It's so depressing to see the table. And I looked at it once and I almost threw up. I know it's not going to end up that way. I believe it won't end up that way. Of course, Luce, what have you got for us? You got another question for us?
Yeah, I just did want to say, but while you're talking about comparing other teams, we did just touch on briefly. I tuned in on the Chelsea game about 60 minutes in yesterday, and obviously they'd gone 10 men down. I was like, okay, well, I'll keep watching. Arsenal kind of put me off my football today, but I'll see how they compare to their mentality going down to 10 men, and they didn't fold up. They didn't completely collapse under the pressure. I know,
Liverpool
like,
at Anfield, Lucy. Liverpool at Anfield not falling apart with 10 men.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they still look like they could go and win it.
And you know what? Lukaku had a great chance in the second half. He could have snatched one. And that's the difference. And people want to tell me, like, with Lampard, before you go to your next question, Luce, just real quick. Lampard and Arteta, they're a mirror image of each other. They look like deer in headlights, okay? And Lampard got away with it for a little while and got them to Champions League football because of the pure talent he had in his team. Much better quality than us overall, right? But eventually, those Lampard coupons ran out too. Now, I know they have a better squad, but you can't tell me that Tuchel coming in didn't change things. He came in with more experience, more nuance, more tactical prowess, and he won 2 European trophies in half a season. I know we won the FA Cup, right, with Arteta, but you know what? That was the tail end of Emery's team. That wasn't even his team. It was a little bit like John Gruden taking over from Tony Dungy, where he won the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It wasn't his team. So, this notion that he won the FA Cup, come on. Aubameyang, Lacazette and Pepe won the FA Cup. Go on, Luce.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Go on, Jess. Go on. No, you want to jump in?
The only thing I wanted to say is that I see in the comments that we came back at Stamford Bridge to tie Chelsea with 10 men. Like, I know that happened, but that should be a good example to you of the difference between the way that we're playing now and the way that we were playing then. That's not what we did. That performance level that we put in at Stamford Bridge to get that 2-2, half of it was the kids just making sure that they didn't give up. And just performance was out of this world. We have not performed like that again. So if you're seeing that that's how we performed at that point, ask yourself why we're not doing that now. I think they've lost faith in the manager. Like, there's something else there. And I don't know why people are acting as though it doesn't exist. Like, it's
Consistency is our Achilles heel. It is the worst. Yeah. Okay, Luce, what you got?
Cruz in the super chat has just said, Emile Smith-Rowe is a top talent, but we would rather have him play a one-touch long ball into the box, more like Bruno Fernandes, which again goes back to not playing players to the best of their abilities. So it's just another great example of it.
You know, do you think Emil Smith Rowe and Odegaard can play together? Jess?
Yeah, I do think they can play together, but I do think they can play together. I'm just not sure how successful it will be. When I look at Emil Smith Rowe, Saka, and Odegaard behind the striker, I think where the goal is coming from. And that's my main issue with them two playing together. I feel like you almost have to have a Pepe by default because he's more of a goal scorer. And Emil Smith Rowe and Odegaard can have a good relationship. It hasn't been developed, but again, where the goal is going to come from. Emil Smith Rowe, great player. You know what I would love to see, you guys, just for 1 second? I know we can't do it, but I just want the thought of not being able to get more out of these players to be dispelled, because I just can't imagine another manager not getting anything out of this group. This is still good players.
I agree with that.
When I'm thinking of it, I'm like, Emil Smith Rowe's a great player. Like, Aston Villa was willing to spend 30 million on him or something like that. Good player. Gonna be good in the future. Saka. When you look at the names on paper, this team is better than what people are making out to seem. All these excuses. I mean, I hear that Arteta has some serious situations that happen, but everybody does. I don't get it. I actually deeped it. After the game, I was like, we'll make any excuse. We will.
Yeah.
That is it. Any excuse at all.
And, there was, in the first 6 minutes, Odegaard played a couple balls, and there was one sweeping ball. It was very Alonso-esque, where he went from it was diagonal to Tierney on the left. And I was like, this kid can play. He can play. But the problem is, are they going to be able to shine and play with this particular manager? And, unfortunately, from what we've seen, the answer is going to be no. Let's see, where do we want to go next here? Luce, do you have another question?
Yeah, so Sam Greenwood asked, do you agree that Edu is also culpable and needs to go with Arteta? Do you think Josh will get that job done? Who tells Josh?
I hope
Josh Kroenke is... Sorry, Jess, I'll let you go. There you go.
I was just going to say, I hope before Josh leaves London that somebody is gone. There's no way that he should leave London without one of them or both of them going. Edu has categorically messed up this window, because if you tell me we had at least 75 million to spend and we didn't get 3 players through the door, that is just insane. He had the money and he chose to just blow it in other places. Now we're in sell to buy mode. Who does that? You have to spend the money a little bit better. I don't know who gave him the credit card, but he has got to go.
This is the problem, right? The problem is that the profile of player we are attracting in this window is very different to what we've been able to attract before. And any Arsenal fan who said, I want to be out of Europe, right, is wrong here, because we're seeing the ramifications of being out of Europe and who we can attract. We signed Aubameyang, Lacazette, Partey, Gabriel, Pepe, Tierney with Europa League football. Why? Because we could dangle that carrot. It was a route back in to maybe playing in the Champions League. Not because we could win the Champions League, but from a monetary point of view, it's valuable for us to be in the Champions League. We're seeing the ramifications of that. So to not have European football at all, this is why you take a risk on Lokonga, who, by the way, I think is a really good player. There's a reason why he was captain of Anderlecht at 21 and Vincent Kompany gave him, that faith.
Recommendation, yeah.
Exactly. So our profile of player has changed. Edu has wasted a lot of money, though. And he's a novice. You've got Vinay, a novice as managing director. Edu, a novice in that position. And Arteta, a novice at manager. Come on, what corporation, because we are, does that and puts millions and millions of pounds in their hands to spend? And the owners at the end of the day are going to get zip on ROI, because here we are at the bottom of the league. And unless they make a bold, brave, big decision now and they stick with this manager, we're going to be in trouble. But that's our profile, Luce.
Here's the thing. I do feel like Edu values convenience over negotiations. Hence why we signed Xhaka again, convenience. Hence why we didn't go and grab Basuma, convenience. Even though he was probably the most convenient, most sort of easy to target midfielder we could have got at the time. He wanted to come to Arsenal. I don't see why we didn't go for it, but who am I to say that, I guess. But hence why a lot of the decisions that have made in the past, Arsenal were interested in this player. Oh, Arsenal were interested, but it's like we go back and forth negotiating, and then it just kind of tails away, and you never hear about the player again. So Edu, I think he is a culprit as well as Arteta. I feel like they haven't done enough to sort of secure us the preparation that we needed to actually compete this season. A lot of the players that we played in the FA Cup final are still it's the same team. Realistically, we haven't seen any progression, and all we've seen is the same players, except they're getting worse and they're getting more. They look ashamed to be there. They look embarrassed.
Can I
and
ask
Josh
you
Kroenke,
guys?
irrelevant to Arsenal as far as I'm concerned. He's just got his name on the ownership, just getting passed down, and that's as far as his involvement goes.
Josh Kroenke is a sports person more than his dad. His dad is a serial entrepreneur, married to the Walmart heiress. I mean, they've got money that generations can live off, right? Kroenke is a bit of a sports guy because he had a passion for the Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are like a passion project for him. And he's brought them back to the point where they were in the playoffs this year and they've built a pretty good team. The Colorado Avalanche, they were in a little bit of wilderness. They were a superb team years past, but again, they've improved and I think got to the playoffs this season. The Colorado Rapids are actually decent this season in MLS. They don't even have a sponsor on their shirt, by the way. The Colorado Rapids. I mean, it's insane. So I think that, when you don't know football of the round kind versus the oval kind, and look what they've done with the Rams, they are all in this year on winning it. They've invested a ton of money. What we want to see is them do the same thing with the Arsenal. Unfortunately, like spending 150 million almost for us in this window, guys, that's a lot of money. But the problem is who you've bought. It's also really difficult to kill Ben White before he's even kicked the ball in one match. It's really difficult to point the finger and say Tavares isn't going to work or Lokonga isn't going to work. The problem is that you don't have the senior players that Cesc Fabregas did coming through the ranks. You don't have. There's a reason why Ferguson played the kids in '92. They had Cantona, they had Brian McClare, they had Dennis Irwin. That's the problem, is how you then manage your assets, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for sure. There has to be an adult in the room. There is no adult in the room. There's no supervision. There's no checks and balances. It's just a bunch of people. I can't imagine Josh going into a room and telling them what he wants. I imagine that he says something like, well, what do you think, Arteta? What do you think, Edu? And they're all just kind of pulling off of each other, but nobody really knows what they're supposed to be doing. And there's nothing, 150 million, that's a huge investment. And what we've seen from the Kroenkes that they put the money in the hands of the wrong people, because I just feel they're a little bit naive. And, with Raul, it was, he worked for Nike and he worked for Barcelona. That was enough of it was a good enough combination for KSC to think that he was good at his job. That's how little they actually know and how little research that they're willing to do to be successful with this football club. So I just think there's a lack of management and they don't hire well. Why can't we get in a Luis Campos? Why can't we get in a DOF that actually knows what he's doing? You actually would spend less if you got somebody in that was better at their job, because they could get better deals done and you wouldn't be bleeding out. 75 million could have filled 3 positions and we could have been on our way. It's like a War, Max Aarons, Bruno Guimaraes right there, 80 million. Why didn't we just do that? But you have Edu up there doing what Lucy said, taking the easy way out because he doesn't actually know what he's doing. There's no adult supervision. Bunch of kids up there playing football manager. It's really bad.
a lot of the problem with the Kroenkes as well is that they just do not understand the culture and the history. They do not respect the history or the culture or the wants of the fans. It's the working man's sport. And as passionate as Josh Kroenke is about sport, or so he says, he just doesn't understand the connection. And we saw that through trying to go into this European Super League. We saw that they don't understand what it means to the fans and what the competition means and how closely we value it. There's a loose connection somewhere there that they see it as a business model and as a brand and as a market employer rather than a football club.
Yeah, but Lucy, if they were spending, like if they were doing a little bit of what Abramovich has done and we were winning and we had a competitive team, no one would care less about seeing the owner in the stands. And you can say all you want about the managerial revolving door at Chelsea. I think all of our Arsenal fans will take this. Right, we've got about 5 minutes left here. And I think you've got another question for us, Luce.
So I've got TAVFC again coming in with what are your thoughts on the club's selling policy and how to get rid of Deadwood? Selling Martinez, Willock, but also keeping Xhaka, Kolasinac, El Neni, etc.
Jess, what's your take on this? It's the bane of our lives, isn't it? We can't sell any of these players. We give them away for free, and then we can't give them away, so they end up playing.
We sell when it's painfully obvious that the player needs to go. And the best time to sell is when it's not obvious, when there's a little bit of uncertainty around it. Somebody is playing well, and you seek an opportunity and you sell them high. Like, we just never really know when. There was an opportunity to sell Hector Bellerin, I think, 3 or 4 years ago to Barcelona for 50 million. Why aren't you biting their hands off for it? Alexis Sanchez, a bid comes in from Man City, 68 million. He walks for free. Like, we just never know when to sell because we're reactionary. We're very, very reactionary. The same thing is happening now with Maitland-Niles. Why not take the 15 million from Wolves if you knew you were never going to play him? Why not?
Yeah.
Eddie Nketiah, Arteta said, we can't sell him in January. Why not? You're not going to use him. It's just this stubbornness. And again, I think it just goes back to we're reactionary because we actually don't have people in positions that know what they're doing. And other teams are just so much smarter than us. The way Brighton has operated in this window, Aston Villa has operated, West Ham, all of these teams are a lot smarter than us. It's because the people up top are smarter. Like, it's not that, like, it's very clear Edu, Josh, Vinay, and Arteta have no freaking clue what they're doing. They probably mean well, but this project, which I think is a good one, young players, build them up, do all that. If you have the wrong people driving the bus, we're going into a wall. Like,
Exactly. And you know what? When teams like Leicester start overtaking us in the transfer market and Aston Villa and they do better business than us, I mean, that's really worrying. Luce, I think you got one more for us from Gunnar Russ.
Hi, Dad. From the Super Chat from my living room downstairs. Gunnar Russ, these players we attracted with European football have taken us down.
Is this your dad, really?
No. That's my dad. Yeah, that is my dad.
It's so epic. I love it.
Love it.
Well, have they taken us down? Do you agree with your dad? I mean, you could. What do you think?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, you could say that it's the players with the same mentality that have also seen out the managers that we've brought in to try and change the situation. The players we've attracted from European football, but does that mean that we don't want to be in European football to still attract the players anymore, to still like look attractive to these players? Like, I don't think that necessarily means that that's a benefit of not being in European football. I feel like the benefit is that we have time to focus on the Premier League and to sort of less fixtures in order to sort of play our strongest side, but that's not happening either. So was the Europa League beneficial to us in the case of we had the opportunity to throw in some of these younger players and try experiments? Maybe that's what benefited Arteta a little bit more in his managerial style. Or you don't know, but
I mean,
but now we're not in it.
Luce, Aubameyang saved us for 2 seasons, his goals. And to be fair, Leno's saves in those seasons, the two of them were our best players and our saviours. Wouldn't you both agree with that? Pepe, I think, has gotten a bit of a rough ride, but if you look at his stats, he definitely improved and has been a bit of a catalyst. His problem is inconsistency. I mean, I think Gunnar Russ brings up a good point, but also, Jess, who's managing those players? You know, it's both, right? It's not just the players. It's also like who's driving, what's the plan, and how are we getting the best out of them. And you know, for me, the FA Cups have been a blessing and a curse at the same time, because they've masked a lot of the pain in people trying to sell us that these teams can then go on to win a Premier League, or at least compete in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I think 100%. It's more about the management of these players for me than the players itself. Because again, I've seen very mediocre sides be coached up in a way where they look a lot better than what they are. West Ham is a really good example of that right now that we're watching day in and day out in the Premier League. It's management. And these players, they don't have the confidence, they don't have the structure, and I just think it comes down to purely management. Do I think that some of these players have been bad eggs? Absolutely. Again, that comes down to management up top, bringing in the wrong personalities, letting it fester, things like that. But ultimately, I feel like if you bring in a manager, at the very, very least, that can organize the group, keep it simple, and galvanize them and give them confidence to go out there and feel like they can win every single game, not just games that are easy, every single game, we'd see something a little bit different. But we've convinced ourselves that it's just the players, it's just the players, it's just the players. I'm sorry, but I'm watching other players that are not as good as ours compete day in and day out in the Premier League. I think it's
Exactly.
both, but the low-hanging fruit is the manager. And at this point, I'm looking at him like, could I not get more out of this group if I changed you out? And my answer is yes. Is it top 4? No, but that's not the only reason to sack the manager. It's not.
Yeah. No. And so Jess is definitely on the P45 pink slip route here. And Luce,
I just don't think he's going to turn it around.
I just don't. I feel, you know why? I feel like when people talk about him losing players, he may have the attention of some players, but he does not have the attention of all the players. And you could, when they were talking about Emile Smith-Rowe, he was yelling to him in the Chelsea game. And a few people have talked about this, right? And Emile Smith-Rowe is kind of looking, and I asked Kevin this question because I'm like, is Emile Smith-Rowe looking at him as if to say, I can't hear you? Or to me, it looked more like, what are you talking about? It was almost like he's confusing him. In the West Brom game, he hardly stood on the touchline. We score 6 goals. And of course, they're a weaker opposition. But his constant man management, micromanagement, whether it's at London Colney or it's within a game, some point, just let the players play. Luce, is he getting a P45 from you?
From me personally, I would say just go now, cut your losses. You haven't got the potential in order to take us forward that anyone else couldn't do what you're already doing. We need someone to, like Jess said, take us back to basics, just reorganize, regroup, get the players' confidence up, and just literally start again. But do I think that that's the answer to all of our problems? Absolutely not. This club is such a shambles from top to bottom that getting rid of the manager isn't going to solve everything. We're not going to make top 6 just for getting rid of the manager. But is it a start? Absolutely.
Yeah. And you see it in other industries. You get rid of, leaders, executives, a new person comes in, gets more ROI. Change is good. We've seen it at other clubs. We're just afraid to pull the trigger, you guys. This has been an epic show, and everyone in chat has been absolutely fantastic. Some great comments. Thanks again to Lee Judges and Dan Potts for giving us the platform to appear on the show. Ladies Late Night will be a regular segment here on Lee Judges TV. I know you guys have your ats up, but Jess, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me at She Knows Arsenal. It's on the screen. And then if you just go to YouTube and type that in, you'll find all my content there. Ranting and raving about Arsenal, stuff I love. So,
we love it.
There.
And Luce, you can find Lucy on our show, on our Wednesday Women's show at Highbury Squad as well. But Luce, you got you're an up and comer and a new voice in the Arsenal community as well. Let everyone know where they can find you. You could spell it out for them just in case they're listening on Spotify or Apple.
Yeah, so again, I have the privilege of being on a regular on the Highbury Squad, but also I'm on Twitter and Instagram as LuceTBH. That's LuceTBH.
Awesome. And you guys know the rule. If you don't wave to Newman, he may have a conniption. So you've got to do that before we go. All right, listen, it's been a fantastic show. Thanks to everyone in chat. At the end of the day, we love our football club and we want what's best for them. And as long as this continues, it's not going to improve. Everyone is responsible and accountable. And at the end of the day, who pays the price? Us fans. And us fans want better for our team and we want better for our club. We deserve it. We demand it. You know why? Because it is the Arsenal Football Club. Until next time, we will see you. Stay safe and keep believing and dreaming that one day we will rise again.